All right, Steve Ruderman here, joined by friend of the show, retired Major League umpire and author of The Umpire is Out. I read it. My dad is now reading it. Long time, 32-year American League and Major League umpire, longtime crew chief, Mr. Dale Scott. Scotty, welcome.
Welcome. I'm just glad to be back. It's been a while, Steve.
It's been a while. I was gonna have you on, but I apologize. I didn't get around to reading your book until a couple of months ago. I didn't want to have you on before because I'd feel like a shitty friend. So
Not a problem. Not a problem. And of course, now the audiobook's out. You wouldn't even have to read it. You could just sit around and listen to it. But no, I'm glad you did, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Oh, it was a great book. Now, is it your lovely voice?
It is my lovely voice. Yes. I had this radio background, and I would not have let anyone else narrate my story.
All right, so a lot of stories in your book, and a lot to talk about today. What's going on in the game? What's going on? What's in this book? And what's going on in Major League Baseball? Stories from your book and what I've been doing. And I want to start off with what I've been doing. I went to the Wendell State Umpire School in January. I've been umpiring some high school, and I want to talk about your early career. I think what was it, 81, 82? You and your crewmate compiled what, like 15 ejections or so?
In 82, my second year, I was in the Cal League with Tim Cheetah. And in fact, I wasn't even there the whole year. They started in April. I was moved. There was an opening, and I got promoted to the Cal League in late May, toward the end of May. And Cheetah and I led the league as a crew with ejections by a lot. I mean, it was like I'm trying to remember now. It was like Tim and I had around 30 combined. And I think the next crew had maybe 18 or 20 something. I don't know. It wasn't that close. So yeah, that's why on the last day of the season, that was in 1982 in the Cal League. The last day of the season was in San Jose, which happened to be where the league president was from. So he came in after the game. Season's over. We knew we didn't have any playoffs because they didn't give us any. And the league president, Joe Girardi, basically said, you both are HS, and you will never work in the Cal League again. So bye-bye. And so we both went to AA the next year.
Wait, you called him Joe? Was his name Joe Girardi, or are you nicknaming him Joe Girardi?
No, that was actually his name. He wasn't a very good league president for umpires. His philosophy is if you eject somebody, then you screwed up. And it's just simply not true. I mean, you may have missed a call to have an argument to get an ejection, but, vast majority of times they eject themselves by saying or doing something they just shouldn't do. And so it's not necessarily because you screwed up. And he would always say, well, if you were a good umpire, you would diffuse the situation. You wouldn't have that. Well, that's easy to say. Try to diffuse a pitcher after he is taken out of the game and given up a few runs, and he blames it on you. When he gets to the dugout, screams across the field, you're effing HS. How do I diffuse that? Well, easily. I just eject him. So that was what we did.
We got it. Ejections are a part of the game, and
exactly.
You just got to bring down the hammer. It's a tool at your disposal, and you got to bring down that hammer.
Well, we don't have penalties per se. I mean, in the big leagues, we have an equipment fine that a lot of times result. Yeah, the reason the equipment fine was put in is to not have to eject somebody if they're frustrated and called out on strikes and they throw the bat. The problem is 9 times out of 10, when they throw the bat and you go, that's equipment, they'll say, F you. And then you go, okay, now that's an ejection. So you get a double fine. You get the equipment fine, you get the ejection fine. But yeah, baseball doesn't have real penalties for, 15 yards or a tee or whatever. So that's how you maintain order basically in a game as an umpire. And now you have to know when to eject and when not to. And you don't just run around ejecting people. That's easy. I mean, trying to keep somebody in the game is something you do try to do. But if they go to, Mach 1, first shot out of their mouths, you're a blah, blah, blah. There's nothing to diffuse. They've just run themselves. And that's what you should do. And if you don't, the other team's sitting there looking and hearing everything that's going on. And they say, well, we can do this too then, So it's anytime you umpire, you may have a situation with team A, but you always remember team B is right there. There's 2 teams out there. Whatever you do or not do with team A, team B is going to, see and hear everything. So you've got to be smart about stuff.
And the key word there is you. Whenever you say
Yeah.
the word you,
When you personalize, I mean, in the big leagues, they come out and they can cuss about the play. That's the worst blankety blank call I've ever heard. And that he didn't blankety blank tag him and he missed but whatever. The moment they say you're a blankety blank, okay, that's personally. Now you're calling me something and you're rejecting. Of course, that's the magic words, so to speak, but also, if they throw equipment, hats, drawing lines, obviously if they make any contact, those are all automatics.
yes. Now in high school, I was telling you before we went on the air, I worked high school ball. I went to um, Wendelstedt in January. Matt Beaver, one of my fellow students who's been around a long time, who knows what the fuck he's talking about, by the way, told me, yeah, don't work high school, don't work varsity. And I told my supervisors, guys, I want to work either youth league or junior varsity. They needed guys because here we're short on guys. And when I
Right.
told guys, I'm not ready. And they're like, yeah, but we need guys, and we're kind of throwing you into the ring of fire. We get it, but we need guys. And you went to Wendelstedt, and so I worked my first varsity game at the last minute. I actually tossed a guy in that, but it went okay. Worked the second game, went great, and I'm like, oh, I got this. And then I schedule a bunch of games. Then my sixth game involved Intercom High School. And I end up tossing the coach and the assistant coach, and the game ends up getting forfeited. And I was pretty frightened walking off the field, not of them, but like, am I going to get in trouble? And the thing
Right.
I did right away was I made sure to call my supervisor as soon as I got home. You got to, in that situation, you got to get in front of it. And thankfully, he had my bags. Like, yeah, both were justified. Don't worry about it. But then another supervisor called me a week later, and because in high school ball, you talk about the equipment 5. Here in high school, we have the power to restrict guys to the dugout the rest of the game, which I'm not. I did it once in a game a couple weeks later, but I'm not a big fan of it. I did it once, I'm thinking, I don't want to do this again. But he's like, okay, we have tools. You gotta be careful because you don't want the managers getting tossed. So try and restrict them to the dugout. And you're put in kind of a tough situation, which is, do you let
Right.
managers walk over you, or do you try and please the bean counters? And it's kind of, what do you think you should do in that kind of situation? What advice would you give myself and other young umpires starting off at the varsity or junior varsity level?
Well, I can see where I can see where restricting someone to a dugout in some cases may be effective, barring an ejection. But let's be honest, if somebody is, if you have a coach that is, very venomous against what you're doing out there, and you restrict them to the dugout, that they still can yell, they still can say things and cause havoc and end up, whatever. So, that in certain situations, I can see where that might help. I can also see where that wouldn't be much help at all. When you're young and starting out, it can be difficult because everything's new. Sure, you've learned the mechanics and you've learned, the rules and that kind of stuff, but it's kind of like driving a car, right? I always tell people that I can tell you how to drive a car in 10 and 2 and, blah, blah, blah. But until you drive a car, you haven't done it. I mean, and we could tell you at umpire school and we could set up situations and all that. And it's very comprehensive. Umpire school is outstanding. I love it. But let's be honest, you're not working a game. You're not actually now at a game where it's all on you and your partner, and you've got, people in the stands screaming and all that stuff. Now you're trying to apply everything you've learned in real time when it's all happening. And the game could be moving a little bit quicker than you anticipated, and I don't mean by pace. I mean just things are happening, and you're thinking about stuff, and you're trying to, put it all together and do your job. But as a young umpire, sometimes you can overreact or underreact to certain things. You can overthink a lot of times. One of the things about experience in umpiring or any officiating, as far as that goes, is when I say, the game sometimes it goes pretty fast. You get to a point after you've had some experience and worked games and stuff where the game slows down and you're not having to think all the time. You're just reacting because you're used, you know what to do now. a guy that has to think, okay, ball's hit, I have to go right to here, and then I have to go right to here. I mean, yeah, you're thinking because, that's what you're taught and that's what you need to do. But pretty soon it's going to be a point where the ball's hit and boom, you're just doing it. You're not thinking about it. You just do it. And you're reacting, to the play. And that's when the game slows down. That's when you're starting to not overthink stuff and you're just reacting, and it all kind of comes naturally. And to get to that, that doesn't happen overnight. To get to that process, it takes experience. And what do we have, Steve, when we have experience? Experience doesn't mean everything was unicorns and roses. I mean, experience also means you screwed up. You had a situation that was screwed up. There was you had a game that was a miserable game to work, and you grind through it. I mean, that's how you get experience dealing with everything that can happen on a field as an umpire. Some of it's not fun. And one of the things one of the best pieces of advice that I got when I first got into the big leagues from Marty Springstead was, and of course we have, we're working 100 and at the time 40 some games or whatever a year. But he was saying, don't get too high, don't get too low. Because there's a game every day, okay, and just try to keep that even keel. Because if you're a roller coaster, when you had a good game and things are going good, you're way up here, and then when you struggle a little bit, you're way down here, and you're just, you're going to be like this. Just try to stay even. And what he means by that is, like you said, after your second game, it went really smooth. I thought, hey, I can do this. This is great. Got a little bit too high. Okay, yeah. All right. When I would walk off the field after I had a tough game, and I was balls, man. I met the moment. I may have had a shit house, but it doesn't matter. I did what I was supposed to do in my job. I was solid. I come in after and being honest with yourself when you evaluate yourself. I come in after that game. I don't get too high. I just go, hey, good job, Scotty. That's the way to do it. And we're on to the next one. Conversely, if I'm out there and I was, for whatever reason, not very good, and also maybe had situations that just came up that no umpire can look very good in because they're just screwed up situations, and you dealt with them the best you can, but you come off the field, I don't get too low, I don't get too down on myself, or I certainly try not to. Easier said than done sometimes, but I try not to, because again, I got a game tomorrow. And I don't need to be in a severe depression because of this game. They say in football, don't let last week's game lose this week's game by thinking about last week or whatever. And don't let last night's game screw you up this game. It's a new game. So, for a young umpire, try to take the good, the bad. You realize what it is. You try to learn when you make mistakes. You try to learn when things go well, what things that maybe you could have done better, or you maybe think you would want to do differently, whatever. But keep that even keel and just realize that, there's another game, and they're all clean slates. It's a similar mentality to an infielder. Double play ball right to him. It goes through his legs. He can't sit and think about that for the next 3 innings. He's got plays. He's got things to do, right? So you deal with that later on, why that happened or whatever, but it's on to the next play. It's on to the next pitch. It's on to, that's, as an umpire, that's all you can do.
It is. Now, what I was also dealing with, now you did ask me before we went on, like, did you think the game was too fast? Did you mean like the pace too fast, or did you mean what you were talking about in terms of thinking too much? And
right. Because that's usually what happens with an inexperienced or a younger umpire. Yes.
Because I thought you meant the former, and I said no, but the latter, the answer is yes. It was I'm thinking too much out there.
And that's natural though, because how many games have you called before this year?
0.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah. So it's a matter of experience and just, repetition's another thing. It takes a while to really establish your strike zone, a solid, consistent strike zone, just because of repetition, because you've just seen a boatload of pitches, and you get into repetition. But when you haven't had, that experience, you haven't had the repetition of seeing a lot of pitches or whatever, naturally you're going to overthink things because you're trying to do everything correctly. You're trying to mechanically do everything correctly. And it's going to be at first a process of just getting through it and thinking and overthinking and maybe, whatever. But again, like I said, when you stick with it and you get more experience under the belt and more games and more innings and see more pitches when you're working the plate, there'll be a point where all of a sudden, and you may not, it's not like it happens just overnight, but you'll realize, whoa, as I think about it now, these last few games, I haven't been on that verge of panic mode all the time about where I'm going or what I'm doing. It's all kind of, the game's kind of coming to me now. It's now at a pace, and again, not time wise, but at a pace of where I'm reacting now. The ball's hit, boom, I'm reacting. I know where I need to go. I got to do this. I got to do that. I don't have to think about it and almost be a spot umpire, as you probably heard in umpire school, where I have to run to this spot here and then I have to run to this spot here. That's not how you umpire. You umpire, where you have to go, but then you have to develop angles and everything else goes with it. But it'll come, but it doesn't come overnight. So I one of the problems with Steve, we were talking about this before we went on, but there's a shortage of officials coast to coast in practically every sport. And part of the reason for that is the abuse that officials are getting from parents and coaches and whatever. And what happens with new umpires, just talking about baseball, somebody that's enthusiastic, they want to umpire, they like what they've learned and what they've done so far, but if they constantly, even when they're right, when they're wrong, when they're indifferent, they're constantly just being abused and just taking it's out of control, some of this stuff. And they get discouraged. They say, you know what? I don't make enough money. I certainly don't, I like umpiring. I don't like going out and dealing with these maniacs, and they quit. And you have bona fide potential multi-decade umpires starting out at a young age, that you're going to get years and years of service from, who does the job pretty, well, and likes the job, but they never really get the chance because after the first, second, maybe third year, they just say, I can't do this anymore. These people are insane, and it's, and again, we're not talking about, hey, that's a good pitch. Here we go. That's out, you missed that one, whatever. We're talking about people that are just on the umpires relentlessly about everything. And it's not, their own kids are embarrassed when they're listening,
Yes.
listening to their parents just drag on about this stuff. It's insane. I don't have the answer except to maybe, bar parents from the game. I do have one answer. I just recently, I think it was in Ohio or somewhere, that some little league, they said if you abuse the umpires, the penalty is you got to umpire 3 games or something. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Great. Yes, it is time for accountability here. It was, I think it was New Jersey, actually.
Okay, yeah, it was New Jersey. Yeah,
I don't want to correct you. I feel like an asshole doing that, but
no, but you're right. What a great concept. I've said that for decades. I said I wish everybody could umpire or officiate a basketball game or a football game, whatever it is, just one time. Put it on and get out there, because you're obviously really good in the stands. You haven't missed a call. All the rules, so why don't you put that, when you stripes on or a blue shirt and go out there and do it. Of course, they have, well, we don't want to do that. You're the, I can't do that. Well, of course you can, because, you're not built for it.
And I had a lot of problems with parents at both the youth league and the high school level this year. I had problems with parents, and I had one game where I was doing youth league, and you want to hear a massive conflict of interest. Down the Elk Grove League, one of the team's head coaches is the president of the league.
Okay.
And his team's parents had the worst reputation in that entire league. And they were hounding me, and I just took my mask off. His name's Joe, and I yelled, "Joe, get your parents under control or you're gone." And, well, I didn't really hear much from them the rest of the game.
Right.
And my partner said, that was the league president. I'm like, oh, really? Well, I don't care.
Well, if he's the league president, he would want parents under control, I would think, because that's not a fun environment to be in for anybody. I don't, I that New Jersey rule or law or whatever the hell it was, to make those parents work games if they get, if they go over the line or whatever, I think is a brilliant idea. I'd hate to be the the poor kids that would have to play when they were umpiring. Yes, I'm sure they would be brutal. But it's very easy to take pot shots from the stands, from your living room, wherever. That's easy. Everybody can umpire there. But it's funny, Stephen, when I retired officially, well, it was in 2018, but after I left the field in early 2017, I had signed off with the league on June 1st of that year that I was done, and that I was officially retiring on January 1st. But I drove down from Portland to visit at that time, my parents and my brother lived in Fairfield, not far from the Bay Area. And it just so happened my brother and my nephew my nephew at that time was around 9 or 10. They were going to go to an A's game that was a 12:15 start, like a Wednesday getaway game. And my brother said, "Do you want to go?" And I'm thinking, last thing I want to do is go watch a baseball game. But I thought, you know what? Jerry Davis's crew is there. I'll go say hello to them. Mickey Morabito is a good friend of mine. He's the traveling secretary for the A's. Yeah, I'll go. And so my dad went too. And so I called Mickey. He got his tickets. He had us park where we always park as the umpires, and stuff. So we had great parking. Didn't have to pay anything, whatever. But I remember, and he had his seat. Got his seats, behind home plate, and great seats. And of course, in Oakley, you can get pretty good seats most of the time. And so sat down, and one of the first things I did, one of the ushers was there, and he knew who I was, and he had introduced himself. But I started to sit down, and I looked, I go, yeah, man, you can see that steal play at second base from here. I didn't realize. I mean, you got a great shot at it, as a joke. He starts laughing, but it's hell, we have pretty good seats, behind the plate. You couldn't tell on pitches. You can't tell inside, outside. You can't, it's a pure a guess. And yet everybody seems to have they know exactly what happened. So, you go out and do it one time. Let's see how you do. And in fact, maybe we'll be in the stands and, kind of do what you do when you're in the stands, and then we'll see what happens. But I think that's a brilliant way to maybe curb some of this.
Now, talking about the strike zone, I had some games where I had a really good zone, and then I had games where my zone was just out of whack, and that happens. What kind of advice would you give to an umpire? Me, what I will do is if I feel like my zone's getting out of whack now, like most umpires, and I do the same first inning, I'll see some pitches when the guys are warming up. Both pitchers are warming up in the first inning. I'll do 2 from the left side, 2 from the right side, both top, bottom the first. Of course, you don't do that in the middle of the game. Me, if my zone's getting out of whack, I might do it a little bit in the middle of the game just to get a look at a few pitches and calm myself down. What would you suggest to someone who is who knows they're struggling with their zone in the middle of the game?
Well, and trust me, it happens to everybody, and it happens. 20 years in the big leagues, it happened to me. There's certain games you don't feel right. Your timing, it's your position, whatever. What I would tell people is, again, kind of going to the analogy of learning to drive. First of all, go back to your basics. Okay, if you're struggling, go back to your basics. Are your feet where you want them to be? Are you in the slot? Are you too far from the catcher? Are you too close to the catcher? Your head height. Am I getting too low? You might between innings ask your partner, "Hey, is my head getting real low?" Or do you see anything that maybe will help me out here or whatever? But go back to the basics. A, B, C. Then timing. Timing is so important. I don't care what sport you're in, and I don't care what position in the sport. Bases, plate in a baseball game. Slow down. Timing, and that's exactly what I would tell a guy. Look at your basics. Look at your feet. Your distance to the catcher. Your head height. All that stuff. And then, excuse me, as I hit my microphone. And then. Timing, slow down. If you think your timing is too fast, I guarantee you it is. And if you think your timing is about right, it's probably still too fast. Okay. Okay. So slow down. And it may seem like an eternity to you from when the pitch is caught to when you call it. Trust me, it's not. Same with it, like play it first or whatever. Play boom, and you think, oh God, I got to call this real quick. No, you don't. Run it through your mind real quick. That little quick, rerun, and then I can't tell you how many pitches I corrected just with that little short rerun I have. I was going to call that a strike, and my timing was good. And I go, no, that's a ball, because if I had not had good timing, I would have called that a strike because I was calling it too quick. So if you're struggling, go back to the basics. And the analogy that I use with the car, you're 10-2. This is how you learn to drive. After you've been driving for a while, I got my arm out the door here, out the window, and I'm one-handed and stuff. But all of a sudden now I'm in huge traffic, freeway, 7 lanes each way or whatever. I might go back to 10-2 because a lot of shit's going on right now. So it's the same thing. That's why you're taught the basics. That's where you always go back to if things are challenging for you, and then go from there. And then the other advice is just one pitch at a time. Don't worry about the one before. Don't worry about the one last inning. Just take a deep breath and one at a time. And I know it's a cliche, just one at a time, but it's just the truth. You can't, if you miss a pitch, you can't make up for it the next, 3 pitches. You just have one more pitch. It's coming in. Call that one. Forget about this one. We'll deal with that later. You can deal with reasons why things weren't working later, talking to your partner or just talking to yourself, but going through a checklist. If you have if videos available, you can look at that and you can, that'll tell you a lot. There were times I thought my head height was good. I look on the video, I'm low. I thought it was great. And I see it on video. I mean, if you would have asked me on the field, yeah, I was, I thought my head height was great. And now, you know what? Look at it. This is it. And I'll go, oh man, who's that guy? He's low. So all those things are what you need to do on the basis. If you're missing force plays or something, are you too close? Are you calling, again, timing? Are you calling it too soon? Are you still moving when the ball is coming in or whatever? Are you not getting your eyes ahead of the ball and now it's exploding on you? All these things are on this checklist that if you're having issues with certain plays or whatever, then go down that checklist and try to figure out if maybe some of these things can be corrected that way. And so, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to, some days, the baseball looks like a BB, and other days they look like a beach ball, and some backgrounds are easier than others. You were talking about taking a couple when they're warming up. The reason why I do that, I just want to see where they're coming from, where they're, the release point. Is it, what's the background like? What's the shadows like? Where the sun glare or whatever, right? 1997 in Baltimore, Seattle was playing as game 3 of the divisional series, game 4. And I've got the plate and Seattle comes up, and it was like a 3:00 start for TV. So it was a goofy kind of afternoon start in October. Seattle comes up, boom, boom, boom. Now here comes the Orioles. I take the first warm-up pitch. I take a Randy Johnson, who's 6'10" or whatever, on a 10-inch mound, and who's lefty. He's coming right out of this silver building in downtown Baltimore. That wouldn't be a problem if you weren't 6'10". And it wouldn't be a problem if you weren't a left-hander, but he was both. And it wouldn't be a problem at 7:00 at night, but it's 3 PM, and you've got the sun, is a little bit lower in October, and the way it was. I mean, the very first pitch, both the catcher and I went, ooh, like we were supposed to see that, and so for a couple innings when Randy was pitching, it was a challenge just to pick up the ball and stuff. But again, I can't say, hey, listen, let's take about an hour off, then we can do this, and it'll be, everything will look good. You got to call it. They got to hit it or try to. And so, but at least I didn't see that. At least I saw it in a warm up, a couple of warm ups, and not the very first pitch of the game, and whatever. But again, what do? You just go back to your basics. You focus, and you just take it one pitch at a time.
One pitch at a time, baby. One pitch at a time. Now, the strike zone is, and I wish they would just accept this, because especially when you work in the slot and you're not right on top of the plate, it is very hard to call the pitch of the knees and the pitch on the outside corner. But they want you to call the damn box, Dale. They want you to call that damn box. And if you get one pitch wrong, it's your fault. We need a robotic strike zone. Oh, fuck you. Really? And I just feel like, okay, like fans, Marvin Hudson had a game in which apparently he got he missed a bunch of pitches because he only got 90% of what they wanted him to call in the box. And Twitter's all over him. Oh, we need robot umps now. And it's like, okay, you people are just looking for reasons to get upset and probably ways you can get retweets and likes.
Right. Right.
Because when the zones were a lot more all over the place 30 years ago, you didn't hear that many people complaining. Now with umpires better at calling the box than ever. I'm not calling it the zone, I'm calling it the box. One umpire has a bad game. RoboZone now!
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. When until the early 2000s, when we went to this Quest system which is now called something else, but that's started getting evaluated, electronically. Yes, we were way too wide. Yes, we were not nearly high enough. But yes, pretty much it was accepted. Now, I'm not saying it was right, but it was accepted. You didn't hear a lot of, you heard it here and there, but it wasn't just a everyday, damn near every pitch occurrence kind of thing with some of this stuff. Now, part of that reason is because we didn't have an electronic, box on the screen, or we didn't have something to compare it to. We just saw it with our own eyes with different angled cameras that weren't, necessarily true angles anyway. I mean, that center field camera that everybody uses is not dead center field because the pitcher would be in their way. I mean, it's off to the side. That affects how you see things. And then when you zoom in, again, that affects how you see things. It affects the optics of what you're looking at. And when you're talking about pitches that are, half an inch, whatever, that effect distorts what you're seeing and can be, can be an optical illusion in a way. But I digress. But the on-screen box that everybody seems to use is just not 100% accurate. Period. It's not. It's a facsimile of the strike zone. It's it's entertaining, if you want to call it that. I mean, but it's just not 100% correct. Especially high-low. They can't change that. They don't have the wherewithal. They don't have the ability to change the high-low lines on a hitter in real time every pitch. You know this, Steve, but a hitter's high-low line can change not only between different hitters, but the same hitter between pitches, because your strike zone is when you're about to attempt to strike at the ball. If you're squared to bunt, maybe you don't bunt, but you're squared to bunt, your strike zone is different than if you're hitting away. And they don't have the ability to do those lines. But the other things I question are the edges of the plate, specifically the outside edge. But if a baseball is almost 3 inches in diameter and any part of the baseball crosses at any part of the plate within the high-low strike zone, by rule, that's a strike. Well, that means a 17-inch plate has almost 3 inches on each side, where the ball's still over the plate. A little bit of the ball is still over the plate. That makes a 17-inch plate, 23 inch or 22 something. So I don't know how much of that is. I just don't know how it's calibrated on these on-screen zones, if they're giving that or not. I just don't know, and I've never got a clear answer on that. But what I do know is, watching a game and a pitch that's just off the line on the outside that's called a strike. And, you'll hear stuff like, oh, that's way outside, or, that's terrible. That's not even close. Really? First of all, I don't know if they're taking into account what we just talked about. Second of all, even if it was, this far off, that is close. Okay. That's a hittable big league pitch. Okay. And to make it sound like it was, something just off the line is the same as this far off the line. It's a joke. And especially when you're talking at speeds that, in the 90s and the movement that these guys have that are, that are phenomenal. Again, I'm not making excuses. I'm just this reality. I'm just telling you, this is how it's all is. But nowadays, and this is what has filtered down to what we talked about earlier, parents and everything else, is now everybody is an expert on pitches, and everything else seems, and it's just in society in general. We have a society now where we just say things that we would never used to say before.
Yes.
And being rude and bullying and making a mockery of stuff is kind of what we do now. And when I say we, I don't, not everybody, but you know what I'm talking about. So you add that with this technology that is gospel to when they watch it on TV. That's gospel. I saw it on the on-screen box. It has to be. I don't know if you remember, Stephen, I think it was last year, I posted on Facebook the exact same 3-2 pitch in a Cardinals-Mets game. One of the frames, the exact pitch, one of the frames was from the Cardinals broadcast, and then the other frame was from the Mets broadcast. It was a bases-loaded 3-2 pitch, a Mets hitter. The Cardinals broadcast, their on-screen strike box had it touching the top line, which would say strike 3. The Mets on-screen box, the pitch was just above the line, which would mean ball 4. The hitter didn't swing. It was called ball 4. Same pitch, the exact same pitch. One telecast has it a ball, one has it a strike. So you're telling me that these boxes are 100% accurate? They're not. They're not. But it is very difficult to tell people that, don't believe your lying eyes when they look on the screen and they see a pitch that's in or out of that damn box. That's gospel to them. There's nothing else you can say. That is what the truth is. So it is one of the worst things that happen for us as umpires, because you're getting judged on something. You're getting judged by something that isn't accurate. I mean, it's close. It's a very facsimile of the zone, but it's when we're, when we're talking about quarter and half inches and even an inch here and there, or whatever, you got to be pretty accurate. Okay. You can't just say, well, so it's an uphill climb for us to try to defend that, because people just don't want to hear it. And just, I'm on a rant here, but let me go for a second, because
please.
I remember last year, I think it was scorecard, right? They show, their scorecard for every play game. And I remember Pat Hoberg had a game, one of the best, if not the best ball strike umpires we have. And a great guy, by the way. But Pat had a regular season game where he missed the first pitch of the game and got the rest of them right, according to scorecard. Now, the caveat on this is I don't necessarily trust scorecard. Okay, I don't know their methodology and all that stuff. But that's gospel to a lot of people. So that's what that is. And I was so sick of hearing, they would post scorecards and people, that's terrible, blah, blah, blah. Guys shooting a 97 or a 98 and they're going, he's terrible and he can't win, blah, blah, blah. So I tweeted, I said, for all the bitching about the Major League umpires, I said, here's Pat Hoberg. I would hope people would give a nice thumbs up or whatever. I said, Pat Hoberg, who missed one pitch in the entire, it happened to be the first one, but missed one pitch the entire game. Somebody tweeted back, he wasn't perfect. The machine is perfect. I thought, man, yeah, okay. How do I beat that? I mean, if a human being misses one pitch and that's not acceptable, then first of all, the machines aren't perfect. Okay. Again, that's a fallacy. It's the same fallacy that we had when we started expanded replay. And people said, well, now that we have replay, we'll never have a controversy. Really? Never will, right? I mean, of course you will. You still do, because there are certain plays you can't tell. You just can't tell. All right. It's you don't have the right angle, or I remember one time there was a play at the plate. I mean, you would have the perfect angle, and right when it was happening, the pitcher who was backing up the plate got in front of the camera, the shot, and you right when you needed it. Right. So that didn't happen. So, but catch, no catches. I mean, come on, you're not, everybody seems to think there's some utopia where everything will be perfect, except the players. Players can make mistakes. That's okay. But that's just not reality. And I take it. I'm not on the field anymore, and in a lot of ways, I'm really happy about that. But I defend these guys because it's just the arguments are so unfair. Yes, you're going to see obvious misses. Yes, you're going to see obvious screw ups by umpires. Yes, you're going to see it. But do you realize how accurate and how correct and how good these guys are? I mean, you would think that these guys just, hey, let's pull a couple guys out of the bar. We need an umpire over here. I mean, it's amazing. And the times that you understand how good these guys are at running the game is when a game isn't run very well. When things are kind of out of whack, or if you watch maybe a college game or just some other game, and it's just out, it just, for whatever it is. But you think, God, I mean, these guys don't have any control or this or that. MLB umpires make things look really easy because they're pretty smooth, and their demeanor for the most part and everything makes everything look easy. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. But we're also doing it every day and have been for many years, and so we have a tendency to make it look smooth and make it look easy, but it certainly isn't. And so I just get a little defensive when I hear these unfair, just people screaming about this and that and this and that. And again, go work a game. Just go work a little league game. I just would love to watch you work a little league game, because if you're so damn good. But little fantasy of mine to go yell at some of these people.
All right, we got about 5 minutes, so I'll use the time play signal to remember. Did you ever use this in 2-man, the time play signal?
Yeah. Well, not just 2-man. We did it in the big leagues. Just to remind, want to remind you. Yeah, it's communication, man. Communication. There's nothing wrong with it.
No, in umpire school, actually, no, I want to. Okay, we're running out of time. So, what is your view of the electronic strike zone, and how would you feel? Would you want to be around for? Let's say you weren't retired yet and you were thinking you're going another 5 years. Would it make you want to get out of there quicker?
Yes. The short answer to that is yes. What I think about it, in AAA, they're doing some games are pure ABS system, automated ball and strike system. Others, the umpires work their game, and each team gets like 3 challenges. Only the catcher, hitter, or pitcher can challenge. If the challenge is upheld, you keep that challenge. When you tell people that, and that's the model, I think, if they're going to bring the ABS in, which they are, that's the model I think they should use for various reasons. But one of the things is, people roll their eyes and say, oh my God, a challenge again. Oh my God, you're going to stop the game. Pitch challenges are very quick. When they've used this challenge system in other levels of the minor leagues over the last few years, someone challenges a pitch, it's pretty quick. Boom, challenges the pitch. Okay, it's a strike. Okay, it's whatever. I mean, it's not something that's going to hold up the game very long. Now, you will have unintended consequences, just like you always do when something like this happens. Runners at first and second, and less than 2 outs, and they're running on the pitch, and you call ball 4, and so they advance, and now they say we challenge. They go, oh, it was strike 3. Okay, so the catcher never had a chance to maybe throw somebody out or throw it away, you're always going to have something that's not going to quite jive when you have this kind of technology. We see it with the replay now. A guy slides into second, nobody says a word, everybody's happy, but they keep the glove on him, and he came off the bag this much. And so they challenge. That's a cheap out. That's not why we have replay, but it's an unintended consequence. What are you going to say? Well, he wasn't off enough. We're going to keep him there. If you have video that shows a tag being applied and the guy's off the base, he's out. So that wasn't intended. That's not why we have replay, but that's what's happened. And so you're going to have stuff like that. We'll see how it all plays out. But I think the ABS system should be the challenge system. Let the plate umpire, okay, like he's been always doing. Because if you do the pure ABS system, all he does is mimic whatever they tell him to do. But he has to be down every pitch, because he still has foul ball, hit batsman, catcher interference, situations that he's got to umpire. But if for whatever reason, from what I understand, if the system has a glitch on that particular pitch, they'll in his earpiece, he'll hear, that's yours. You have to call it. So I could be going down every pitch for 8.5 innings, not have a single pitch to call, but I have to be ready every single time, which is like torture. And then in a real crucial situation with the tying run or something, all of a sudden, you go down because it's kind of routine because that's what I've been doing. And all of a sudden he goes, it's yours. Oh, yeah. Start, if the amount of focus and concentration you need to work the plate at the major league level and to make somebody do that every game and never call a pitch until you never know when you might have to call it. I mean, that's just wrong. That's a cruel and unusual punishment. I think the Supreme Court, even this one, will say that that this is cruel and unusual punishment. But so that's why I think the ABS system, when it comes in, I think you should have a challenge system. Let the guys do what they do. Let them umpire. If there's a pitch that you really want, and that's a strategy for them too. You only get 3. So, if there's a real crucial pitch that you think was called wrong, then challenge it and we'll go with that. But that's, to me, that's the way it should be.
Now, would you be willing to umpire with that system in place? I know you wouldn't want to do it with absolute ABS, but if it was the challenge system, would you be willing to do that?
I would be more inclined. Yeah. I'm not going to name names. I know one guy that's a longtime crew chief this year. That he said, I was going to go a couple of years. I'm going to retire after this year. Why? Because he doesn't want to deal with that. He doesn't want to deal with the ABS and no matter which way they do it. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him. But this is where it's going. Technology, you can't outrun technology, and people are very used to watching games at home and huge screens and super slow-mo and, high definition, blah, blah, blah. Several different angles and stuff. And they want perfection, so to speak. And
yes, that's a shame.
Let me finish it off with this. When I talk to groups and stuff, I've always used this analogy. I said, you want the umpires to be perfect. You never want to miss call ever. And we don't either. I mean, it's not like we go out there and go, I hope I only miss 5 pitches today. That's not your mentality. That's not what you do. But yes, we are human. So you hate missing a call, but I haven't. But I always use this analogy. I say, okay, runners at first or bases loaded, 1 out. And now there's a ground ball right to the shortstop, a perfect double play ball. You're out of the inning. Nobody scored. That's awesome. And it goes through his legs. So what do? You say, after further review, he usually makes that call, or makes that play. So we're going to award a double play. Boom, boom. With that, I mean, that would be insane. That would be ridiculous. Why would you do that? Well, you're doing the same thing basically with the umpires. You're saying that if by video that shows that you made a mistake, well then, you'd never do it with the players. And I get it. We're not there to watch. They're not there to watch us. And I get it that 3 out of 10 times, if you get a hit, you might be in the Hall of Fame, for Christ's sake. So not being successful in baseball as a player a lot of times is not a horrible thing, but the standards they put on officials, it used to be baseball people say, yeah, I'm pissed off he missed that play, or I think he missed that, but whatever. But I also remember, last game there was a questionable pitch that went our way, and so I mean they understand that it's a human that's dealing with this, and humans that are doing this, and they in the heat of the moment they might be extremely upset, but they understand. There's an understanding there, and a lot of these new technological fans that only look at their phone every day they have no. That doesn't take into account. You have, like the guy said, he missed 1 pitch. He wasn't perfect. Okay. I think the last guy that was perfect was on a cross somewhere. They nailed him up there. So it just aggravates me a little bit that these new standards that are just not fair, frankly.
What aggravates me is the society we live in that's become so sterile and void of personality. So before we go, Dale, I need you to announce to the crowd the call. We're overturning the call. The runner is safe at second. The teams are the Giants and the Mets. The Mets challenge. The call is being upheld. The runner is safe.
Oh, you want me to say that?
Yeah.
Oh, well, let me preface this by saying that I'm happily retired. I haven't looked back. I made the right decision. That being said, I am brutally pissed off that they finally did announcements after I left. I mean, this is right in my wheelhouse. And I've been giving Danny Isonia, who's a great friend of mine. I worked with him over 1,000 games together. He in the off season, he called me a couple of times. He goes, now, what do you think of this? And he'll do, they had given him different announcements, to practice with or whatever. And I said, well, Danny, you got to, articulate. You got to pause right here. You have to have a dramatic pause right here. And you have to go like there. I'm giving him like voice lessons. I forget what you said, but something to the effect of the Giants have challenged the play at the plate of the runner being off and tagged out. I don't know. We're gonna go back. I'll tell you. I'll do an ad lib one. Man, I could have swore that son of a bitch tagged him, but I guess he didn't. I saw it, and so he's safe. I think that one they'd cut my mic. I think.
Any chance you could give me an official one?
Well, I don't have it. I mean, I'm not even sure they're how they say it, but the Giants have challenged the play at the plate that the runner was out. We will now go to replay. And after replay review, there was no convincing video evidence. The call stands.
And you would go more into detail than most umpires.
Yeah. Well, I saw a game the other day, and I don't know what the league has told the umpires about the mics and all that stuff. But so I don't know what they're working under as far as that. But I saw the other day there was a confusing. It wasn't a replay, but it was a confusing situation on the field that the umpires got together, and of course the announcers weren't sure what was happening and this and that. I mean, that's a perfect time to to after you resolve it, just say there was a question of the clock pitch time, pitch clock being reset too soon or whatever. The clock is correct, and that whatever. I mean, just explain to let people know. That's why you have microphones. They finally gave us microphones to do this. And if you have something that's a little confusing or a little off, just make a brief announcement just to kind of let everybody know what's going on. Again, they may not agree. They may think you're an idiot, but at least they have an idea of what the stoppage was for. So I don't know if the league has limited them to just certain things, but I think that would be a wise thing to do.
Absolutely. All right, Dale Scott, The Umpire's out. It's on bookshelves, Amazon, and on audio. You can listen to Dale Scott's beautiful voice. I don't know why you've never taken a shot at play-by-play, Scotty. You should.
And, of course, you can always go to umpiredalescott.com for all your Umpires Out information.
All right. Thanks for watching us, folks. Take care.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, pal.